Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. Now, there's no question that the crew here is all about progress, and sometimes progress comes in the form of higher resolution monitors. Although, when it's not that wallet-friendly, it can be a bit of an issue. Now, Samsung and ASUS recently hit the market with fairly economical 4K monitors to really inject some life into the whole 4K movement, but those were 28-inch models where having that much screen real estate really makes sense. And so what happens when you take all those beautiful 4K pixels and shrink them down to a laptop? Whoa, Linus, a laptop? Yes, a laptop. Lenovo actually decided to cram a beautiful IPS 4K panel into one of their laptops. This, my friends, is the Lenovo Y50 4K edition. So Lenovo's Y series is their gaming and multimedia notebook line that they say feature fast processors paired with high-resolution displays and studio-class audio. The Y50 is a 15.6-inch notebook which sits squarely in the middle between the Y40 and the Y70, which are the 14-inch and 17.3-inch models. This particular one is actually called the Y50 UltraHD, which I said 4K edition, but I think you guys can figure out what those both mean. But before we get into specs, let's just do a quick physical tour of the notebook. So on the top, we've got a beautiful brushed aluminum finish with a Lenovo logo, and on the bottom, we've got a beautiful brushed aluminum finish with a Windows 8 logo, as well as some intakes, and yes, that is a JBL base port, one that actually seems to do something. Unlike most notebook audio systems that aren't really that great, this one sounds pretty darn good. On the left-hand side, we've got two USB 3 super speed ports, and then we've also got HDMI out, and yes, a full-size gigabit Ethernet jack, as well as the reversible power in. See, just pull that baby out. Put it in the other, oh, it blew up. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Don't worry, it's actually reversible. And then on the right-hand side, we've got another USB port, Kensington lock, SD card reader. That's something that so many notebook manufacturers leave out these days, and I really wish they wouldn't. Love the SD card reader. And finally, your two audio jacks. Spec-wise, the system is powered by a Core i7-4710HQ processor, clocked at 2.5 gigahertz stock and turbos up to 3.5 gigahertz, and that is paired up with either 8 gigs or 16 gigs of 1600 megahertz DDR3L, so that's low voltage RAM. For storage, there's a ton of options. In fact, for all the specs, there's a ton of different options, but for this particular model, you can get a 1 terabyte, 5400 RPM hard SSHD with 8 gigs of NAND flash, or a 512 gig SSD. The battery is a 4-cell 54 watt-hour lithium-ion battery, which Lenovo says is good for about 4 hours of regular use and 1 hour of gaming, which from my use with it sounds about right. Then for wireless connectivity, there's Bluetooth 4.0 and Intel Wireless AC. And all of these primo features are packed into a 5.29 pound and 0.9 inch thick design. All right, so I've teased you guys enough. Let's take a closer look at all the juicy goodies on the inside. We'll start with the keyboard, which Lenovo has branded AccuType, as opposed to like InAccuType, which would be an inaccurate keyboard. It actually is accurate. It's one of the best that I've worked with on a gaming notebook. It has a red LED backlight, and the layout is your standard layout without any unnecessary modifications to the backspace, backslash, or shift, or arrow keys. The feel is also very tactile. My only real complaint is the lack of mute and media control keys. The touchpad is what I would call passable. It does a great job of palm rejection. However, it suffers from some fit and finish issues, The click pad's a little bit different on either side, stuff like that. So it's one of those things, I'd say it's pretty middle of the range. It does track okay, it doesn't accidentally detect Windows 8 gesture, so it does a lot of things well. It just could have been a little bit better implemented. Which brings us to the centerpiece of the system. It's a 4K display. We're not talking any 4K display here, guys. It is an IPS display, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. The laptop comes in at less than the price of a 4K IPS monitor, like a lot less, and it has a 4K display. However, there is a bit of an asterisk here. The panel runs at 48 Hertz rather than the standard 60. This won't be an issue when you're watching movies, but if you're playing games, you might find the lower refresh rate bothersome. I personally don't find it nearly as bad as 30, but it is noticeable. The display is powered by a GTX 860M with 2 gigs or 4 gigs of memory, depending on the configuration. And while it's a fairly capable GPU, running at 4K with it is not necessarily realistic. Even high-end desktop graphics cards like a 780 Ti have trouble with running games at ultra settings at 4K. And then the other issue is that if you run it at a lower resolution, often you will end up with black bars around your game unless you're willing to log out of Windows, change your resolution, change your text size, log back into Windows, and then launch the game like that, and you can get it to fill the whole window. So it's not necessarily the most seamless experience, and you might go, okay, well, Linus, what if I just didn't scale? Well, if you don't scale your text on this kind of a display at this kind of a size, you're going to end up with this teeny weeny tiny text that you really can't read unless you're like super eagle-eye vision. So the solution here, I guess, is you can check out the standard version with a mere 1920 by 1080 resolution display, but unfortunately that one doesn't have such a beautiful panel. So another alternative would be to just force Windows to run at 1080p on this one all the time. It looks relatively not bad for a non-native resolution. So conclusion time. The laptop is really amazing. Looking at the spec list, looking at the build quality, and looking at the pricing. High-end graphics, including CUDA capability, a 4K IPS panel, sexy form factor, but there are some flaws that really make me look at it and go, wow, one more generation to improve on this, and we could be looking at a truly unbeatable value. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment below and let us know how you would use a 4K laptop. Like the video, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.